What's up, YouTube? It is your boy Rebirth Pro, and we are back again with another YouTube video. Hey guys, today I wanted to make a little bit of a different video. I'm going to go into the history of adultery, and this is something that I just randomly picked up a book and decided that, hey, I want to be informed on what adultery was like throughout all of civilization and different histories and cultures. And I wanted to share with you some of the information that I got. It's very interesting. You're going to see a lot of how adultery has always been around, and then you can be able to compare it to what we have today in our societies and the way that it's looked at versus the way that adultery was looked at back in the day. And today I'm not actually going to be going that far back because I'm going to make a series I'm going to make a series of videos that will cover multiple societies and different civilizations through time. Today, I'm actually going to stay near something that is close to our time, and we're going to be focused on the young Italian men of the mid-1900s. And so that's very close to where we are now. It's 2023, and the 1950s is literally 70 years away, 80 years away. And I'm going to give you some information about how that was handled back then in their culture. So back then, adultery was considered more of a rule than an exception. There were strict rules that they had to follow. The key to adultery in those times were to be discreet. It's not very different from what you see today in society. Literally, if someone's going to cheat, then they need to be discreet. It usually is the only way that it could ever continue or not cause a rumble in society. And almost every Italian man back then reported that they had a lover that they visited regularly during these times. And this would normally happen on the weekdays. It was either late in the morning or early in the evening while the wives' husbands were at work. They were on fishing boats, or maybe they were in their retail shops, or sometimes those husbands were actually off doing their own adulterous activities themselves. This doesn't sound too much different from what we have today when you think about it, because this is pretty much still prevalent. If someone is going to cheat, it's usually going to be while the other person's at work or something like that, where you know they're going to be gone for hours, or they could be out on a business trip. And plenty of times the spouses could be also cheating on each other discreetly without them knowing about it. And so this was something that was really prevalent in Italian culture. Like I said, everybody knew it was happening, but nobody really spoke about it, so that if you got discovered, it was okay in a way, but it was just something you never really spoke about. Now, think about that to how things are today. Do you feel like anything has really changed with this? It is something that really is just a secrecy thing. If you can be secret about it, then it kind of just is pushed under the rug. It was more of a normal thing. And as I get into more videos and more societies that are into this adulterous nature, you will see that this has always been here. This is very interesting. It has always been here. It has always been happening. It's not something new, and it hasn't always been taboo. And there are very different ways that societies have handled it over time. I'm going to get into that. So that's mostly how the men in the 1900s of Italy were handling some things, which may not surprise you because you could probably go into other cultures too. This is just where the information was documented. Hundreds within the Italian culture, generally middle class and upper class men had a long lasting affair. Many middle class and upper class men had long lasting affairs with women that were of the same or lower social standing. Sometimes there were servants that visited the wives of their landlords. And then there were other times where more prestigious men would engage in coitus with their maids or cooks. This is similar to the modern day time where we have Arnold Schwarzenegger. He had that huge news story that came out that he was involved with his longtime maid because they had a child together. But outside of that, nobody would have ever spoke of it. Nobody would have ever known. And that was how it has always been in the history. Based on what I'm talking about right now in the mid 1900s. It was common that a man that had wealth and resources would engage in those activities with someone that worked for them. Now, the longest lasting affairs, believe it or not, were between men and women who were in marriages. It was discovered that many affairs between married individuals would actually last for several years or even until the end of life. That means they literally took their secrets to the grave. It was so crazy that some affairs were just like that. They lasted a very long time. And we're going to talk about more of discreetness in a few. The only thing that was considered to be taboo was for older women who were unmarried to engage with young unmarried men. The young men were very boastful of their encounters, and gossip was intolerable in the community. In many of these villages, family was the core of society. So anything that would disrupt the community cohesion and destroy family life was not looked upon lightly. And this is why infidelity was commonplace, because um, family life was of most importance and not to be undermined, but as long as everyone was quiet about it and did not disrupt the cohesion of the community, you kind of just did what you wanted to do. So if infidelity was very common, it wasn't something that was very, don't do it, is let's all remain in harmony, even though we're doing whatever we want to do. And no married men were ever publicly accepted to show sexual interest in another woman. This was completely unacceptable, and other men would not entertain or support any types of conversations like this. And it was really something back then that, if you ever watch, let's think about Game of Thrones. If you ever watched Game of Thrones, I believe it's in within the first few episodes, you saw that thing where this kid saw the brother and sister mating with each other, and of course they never wanted that secret to get out. And so knowing that the kid could be someone that could disrupt the whole family structure of the kingdom, this is why it was a threat for that kid to see that. But back then, this was the only way that this type of information got out about extramarital affairs. It was literally someone had to find out because of lack of privacy. This was really the main way all of this was discovered. There was nobody walking around bragging to their friends that they were having extramarital affairs. There were people back then, there was no social media, so you could not post certain things. It was easier to hide it back then, or be very discreet about it, which was the most important thing. It wasn't so much that you could not do it. It was just, as long as it doesn't disrupt anything, hey, it's just a normal practice. So let me know, what do you think about the history of the mid 1900s and the way that adultery was handled back then, and how does it compare to now in the way that adultery is looked at or conceived in the wide view of the public now? Do you think there have been massive changes? Because I have some other ideas that I'm going to share on some other videos, and the next video I actually am going to go into the history of adultery back in the Amazonian society. So this is going to take us further back into history, and you're going to be very surprised at what you get from that video. So make sure to subscribe. This is different from the body game videos. I want to give you a plethora of things to expand your mind with. This is just something for you to learn, and I hope you enjoy.